I visited Bondi Beach for the first time a few months ago, and it was part of a speaking tour in Australia. I met with Jewish communities in, as you said very correctly, Melbourne and Sydney, and I spoke with politicians in Canberra. And when I interacted with Jews there, my impression was of people who knew that they were living in paradise, which I think modern Australia is. It's a beautiful country that works well. People are nice and friendly and respectful of others. But the Jews there, many of the Jews, not all of them, but many of the Jews told me that, listen, we feel exposed. We are afraid to have any external sign of Jewishness. We are afraid when we send our kids to the Jewish school, and we are concerned about our safety when we're out and about on the streets and when we are at synagogue. And one of the main reasons is because law enforcement, police officers, simply stopped doing their job, and politicians gave tailwind to extremists who were taking over the streets in Australia. And I'll remind everybody watching who's trying to whitewash Islamist terrorism that Palestinians, Hamas supporters, Muslims and other people were out chanting "Gas the Jews" in Sydney by the Opera building on October 8th. And that was before Israel had done anything in retaliation to the atrocities that Hamas perpetrated on October 7. And then those marches were allowed to continue every Sunday in Melbourne, in the local parliament office, and multiple times in various locations in Sydney and in various Jewish neighborhoods. There have been at least 20 attacks, hate crimes on Jewish locations in Australia. Most, if not all of them, have gone completely unanswered by the Australian authorities. And Jewish people, what they've been saying is, we are exposed. Our blood is now okay to be hunted. And yes, there's no empirical connection that proves that these two Islamists or these ISIS-inspired murderers, the son and father duo that murdered 15 people, that they were directly linked. But I think that the atmosphere matters. I think that when the Australian government goes ahead while Israel is fighting a war against Hamas and says, we are going to put our chips behind Hamas and draw a direct connection between October 7 and Palestinian statehood, and we are going to be virtue signaling that we are oh so benign, progressive and developed, and we are going to put our diplomatic support behind Hamas and the Palestinians. That is an enabler for terrorism. And I remember myself saying it in the Grand Synagogue of Sydney, and I remember speaking about it with Australian officials in Canberra, saying that, my dear fellow members of a democracy, you are creating a very problematic situation that is enabling and legalizing and allowing the killing or the targeting of your citizens. They are first and foremost Australians. They are loyal patriots. They pay their taxes. Okay. They're proud of their country. They love their country. And I think my response was, sadly, I was not surprised. This was in the works. This was coming. And I think that Australian authorities have a lot to answer for. Okay. We've been asking questions, some of them relevant, I think, but I think we should be listening to what's coming out of the Grand Mosque in Sydney and what main imams are saying and preaching on Fridays and in special sermons, and what they're saying to their believers.
They condemn Bondi categorically.
Some of them
say
are.
It, say it. They're condemning Bondi.
Some of them are not.
Say it. They are condemning Bondi. They are standing with their Jewish brethren.
Some of them are, and some of them very clearly are not.
Show us the evidence.
I'll just be allowed to finish a point here before you jump. I'll just want to make a point here, because I think this connects with us having a little bit more clarity and honesty about the situation. To be clear, I do not think that every Muslim is to blame for this. That's a ridiculous thing to say. I don't think that Muslims as a whole are a problem or the problem. I think that unchecked extremism, where local authorities are either too weak or too cowardly or too ignorant to recognize recognize that is the problem. And that's a problem that permeates in England, in Germany, in Sweden, in France, in Australia, in Canada, and in some parts of the US. It is the complete lack of understanding what extremist Islam is.
2 billion Muslims live in peace. 2 billion Muslims live in harmony. 2 billion Muslims live alongside Christians and the Jews. But Muslims did not commit the Holocaust. Muslims did not impose apartheid. Muslims didn't slaughter.
Since you're half Palestinian, I can understand your frustration because you and your forefathers had an opportunity to a state, and you and your forefathers missed that opportunity.
You don't lie convincingly.
And you and your people are the only ethnic group that have been given continuous chances time and time again to make peace, to end the conflict.
I've heard it all before.
What you and your people have done
knows that you're lying about the atrocities.
That is what you and your people have done. Israeli governments have offered Palestinians 4 peace deals. 4 times have Israeli prime ministers made serious proposals.
I heard they're paying you well. You're going to be out of energy by the end of this. We've heard this all before. It's a playbook. We know it.
Here's land, here's a capital, and let's end the conflict. And what have your representatives done? They have said, no, that isn't enough. We want it all. We want it from the river to the sea, and that is what you and your people continue to ask.